Hi, everyone. This is Caroline with the Expat Interviews Thriving Abroad, where we give you an opportunity to meet some of the most amazing, incredible, daring, adventurous, cool, sexy, pretty, beautiful women that are doing amazing things all over this globe. And I wanted to revisit one of our expat mommies who is really making strides in helping others. And I feel that this is a great topic that we need to talk about, especially now in the coming months, maybe years, when many people are looking to maybe branch off into other countries visiting, and the digital space is really what's happening. And how do we do it? How do we take those steps? How do we get in? How do we, how do we manage the children and the digital, the work, and all that responsibility that comes with it? So I invited Kimberly to come back and just let us focus a little bit on some of these issues that I'm sure many of you have a great interest in, and she can share some of her knowledge with you. Thank you so much, Kimberly Miles, for joining me again
Thank
for a
you.
talk. So let's dive into this. The last time we spoke, we got to meet you. You're a beautiful single mom with an amazing son. How old is he now?
He is 7, will be 8 in October.
Wow. And he's growing so big. I think even just in the last that we spoke, and he just seems like he's getting taller and taller and bigger and bigger.
Oh, yeah.
And you're enjoying life in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, which is a beach town. And, for those that don't know, it's one kind of touristy, I guess I would say. Back in the day, everybody would go to Puerto Vallarta. That was the hot, the sexy, the young, the famous would all go. And I wanted to just have you talk a little bit about what has life been since you've left the US, in the time that you've been out and now you're settled in. What has it been like for you? I know there's been challenges, but what have you learned? What has it been like?
Well, there's definitely been ups and downs since leaving the States. Of course, I moved to Vallarta completely sight unseen. So from the start, there was that challenge of diving into a new country, first time moving abroad, moving to a new city, not knowing anybody, and then also moving abroad without really a job. Like, for those who know me, I used to work 15 plus years in corporate marketing in the States, and decided that, I was done with that life, that I wanted to work for myself, to spend more time with my son, to have more freedom. And I decided to start my own business, and I was going to launch that business once I landed here in Mexico. So that being said, I moved abroad without having any clients secured or anything like that. So from the start, there was challenges, there were difficulties, there were doubts that I had, wondering if I had made the right decision, and trying to get a hold of the business while trying to build a community, trying to be a support system for my son, who was not having it when we first moved here. I mean, it was difficult. There was a lot, but over time, I guess the good thing about it is it taught me to be strong. It taught me how to figure out things, how my son and I could both be problem solvers together in our new country, how we could build a community here, get involved with people, get involved in things that we had never done before. And then from a business perspective, it really like lit a fire under my butt at that point, because I had no choice but to make something happen. I had no choice but to get out there and network and believe in myself, and really kind of build up my own confidence so that it could take off, and we could start to thrive here. And it took a couple of years, but it'll be 3 years on the 27th of this month that we've been living in Mexico, and things have been great. I mean, my business has taken off 100% virtual, on my own, independent, something that I never dreamt I could have done, or maybe never would have had the time to, since when I was living in the States and everything was about the 9 to 5, the rat race. But living here has really kind of helped put things into perspective, how to help me slow down and really focus on my goals. So yeah, things have been great. There were challenges again, but with those challenges came the strength to really overcome those challenges and figure them out. So it's been wonderful.
Yeah, it's a special, breed of women that are able to manage this emotionally. what is it like for your son in particular? I mean, or I should say, as a mom, a single mom in general, the needs or the emotional needs of your child. I mean, is that something that you really have to take into consideration? Is that a whole other element to the move that you have to deal with?
Absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned that because, when we first came to Mexico, the idea was to do the digital nomad thing. I had been involved in the groups of world schoolers and I saw people traveling around the world. And I'm like, this is a great opportunity to really travel with him and see several different places. And the idea was to be in Mexico for 6 months. We got our residency permit just in case. But, the idea was to be here for 6 months and move on somewhere else. But as soon as we landed here and I saw like, the difference in his attitude, it was hard for him to make that transition. It was very difficult for him to make that transition. It was so hard. Those first couple of months, I considered going back to the States and giving up my dream because it was so hard on him. He wasn't used to not having everything that he wanted at his fingertips. The language barrier, even though he had been exposed to Spanish back at home with his father's side of the family, it was still like a shock for him to be somewhere and not be able to communicate all the time. He didn't have his family around. He didn't have his friends around. He didn't have his belongings. And he was 4 years old when we moved. So I think, a lot of people think, oh, they're young, they'll be okay. But we still have to take them into mind as well, even if they don't have a say. But every single thing goes back up here to them. They take everything and bring it in, and some kids are really good about adapting to new places with no problem, but not every child is. And I think as parents we need to be mindful of our children, how they learn, how they react to things, and how they adjust. Every single child is different and it will affect them in every step of the way. So, I mean, again, 3 years later, my son has gotten better with things, and that took time, enrolling him into school, enrolling him into different activities, and getting him accustomed to different people, meeting up with other expats, and then getting to know other people. But it's still a challenge for him. It's gotten better, but he still prefers to be around people who speak only English. There are still times he wants to go back to Virginia, where we're from. And here he is walking in the room now. Sorry for the interruption. I just want to feel the Okay, I am actually on him, but it's been a challenge for him. But it's gotten better.
Yeah, I know that it is difficult for children to leave, their familiarity and go to a place, and it's cool for us, but they're probably like, what the heck is that? I also, as a child, had to go to a different place. My parents sent me to go to school in Jamaica when I was young, and I resented them. I hated it, because I'm like, why am I going to this place? Like, I don't know anybody. I don't like anybody there. And so it's very interesting, the dynamic. Something that I am really excited, that I really wanted to share, that you're doing, is you're helping moms in the entrepreneurial space. And this is something very important for many women that want to maybe venture off and try living abroad, like work. Like, we got to make money. How do we make money? How do we do it? What are some of the things that you suggest?
Yeah, and that's actually one of the number one issues that I see or that I hear from when I talk to other single moms who want to move abroad, is just that, how are we going to make money? Or they think that they can't do it because there's no way to make income, or they don't have, the type of job that allows them to work abroad. So what I tell people is that you don't need to have a corporate job to move abroad. To think about your passions, think about what it is that you truly love and how you can turn that into income. That's exactly what I did. I had a background in corporate marketing, and so I started doing freelancing for sites such as Fiverr. There's Upwork. There are ways that you can get that freelance experience and start doing stuff on the side. And then that's what helped me turn into, or, start building my virtual assistant business, and doing exactly what I did for corporate, but doing it independently. So offering those services to other people, getting out there in groups, Facebook groups, LinkedIn, business groups, networking with people who need the help, and then offering that help to them independently. And so that's something that I like to, really coach single moms on, because I think we get stuck in that mind frame of being an employee. And to, instead of thinking outside the box and trying to build something for ourselves, something that we can be, you know, location independent and not have to depend on somebody else to give us a paycheck. And I think a lot of that, I mean, that restricts us from moving abroad or from traveling the way we want to. It restricts us from a lot. It restricts us from spending time with our children because we're, you know, on somebody else's time clock, on someone else's paycheck or someone else's payroll. But as single moms, we need to, you know, step outside the box a little bit more, think about our interests, our passions, and think about how we can help others when it comes to those passions and turn it into income. And it's a process. I mean, that's a huge conversation to be had, but there are so many opportunities out there for single moms to kind of break out of that box and do something on our own to create the life that we deserve.
What about women that come from, say, a stressful relationship? You know, they are venturing off and with so much dynamic, they're, you know, leaving maybe a bad relationship, a breakup, what have you, you know, being a single mom. When you go abroad, I mean, how do you find alone time or me time or time to reflect time and just be me time when you have
Yeah.
all those?
Oh yeah, the me time. The me time is hard. If you can't tell, I don't get much me time here. But you know, that is like a huge issue when moving abroad. And that was one of my biggest issues. And that's where I find the importance of building a community. Once you get abroad, not just when you get abroad, but before you move abroad. Like when you make that decision to move abroad, when you find a location that you want to go to and have settled on, dive into groups on Facebook or wherever you hang out online, dive into groups and really start building those relationships ahead of time with other expats or other travelers who are there. Or even, it doesn't even have to be other expats or travelers, even the local community. For example, here in Vallarta, there's a group called Mamas in PV, or Mamas in Puerto Vallarta. Is a mix of expats as well as locals who are, you know, born and raised here. That has been an excellent source for me since before I moved abroad. And I got into that group and I started asking questions. I started making connections with people, both people who spoke English and people who didn't speak English. That way, when I arrived here in Vallarta, even though I moved here sight unseen, I knew that there were people here. There were other people here that I talked to before. There were other people who were also moving at the same time as me. And that really helped to, you know, again, build those relationships so that later on down the line, when it came to finding childcare, I already had a set of trusted individuals or people who knew other people that they could recommend for childcare. And so now, you know, I'm able to take that me time. I'm able to get a babysitter, you know, once or twice a month or however, you know, much I need it. And then similarly, getting to know the community itself, knowing that there are resources here, such as, you know, nanny services and so on, that come highly recommended. That helps a lot with getting that me time in. But I think that, and you know, I tell the single moms this all the time who are moving abroad, like when you move abroad, it's hard. I mean, again, because, you know, we don't have our family for supports. Well, most of us don't have our family nearby for support. We're having to start all over again with friends. And so, and because of, you know, the cultural differences or the language differences, we end up isolating ourselves or because we're afraid to venture out. We're afraid to talk to other people. We're afraid to figure things out. But I think it's so important to remember to have that community and to really make sure you get that me time in by any means possible, because you're going to need it. It's really difficult when you move abroad, and it can be kind of lonely at times. And so it's so important to really not be afraid to reach out, to get out and try and, you know, give yourself some time as well outside of being a mom.
One of the last things I wanted to ask you, and kind of segueing into this question, what about dating as a single mom abroad? How have you found that to work for you? How does that work?
Oh, that has been a roller coaster ride. It has been fun, but it has definitely, okay, can you please, I love him to death, but it's really making it hurt. No, seriously. Okay. So yeah, dating has been a challenge as well, but it's definitely something that I think, you know, single moms should look into when moving abroad. I mean, some single moms, they prefer to say single moms, which is completely fine. But then there's other single moms that, I mean, we don't want to be single moms forever. And so it would be nice to get out there and meet somebody and, you know, have that someone there just to talk to. And I think, it can be difficult because, again, depending on where you go, there are language differences, there are cultural differences when it comes to dating, when it comes to the way things are done, when it comes to communicating, which is always hard, but it's something that can be dealt with. And so I find, like, the best way is to, well, for me, joining dating sites has been very helpful. And I know a lot of people think, like, oh gosh, not the dating sites, especially if you're coming from the States and it's like a hot mess there. And it's a hot mess everywhere, to be honest. But that's really helped with kind of venturing out, getting to know different people, and without having to worry about being committed or, to someone. So it's a good way to really kind of get out and, see what's around you, and,
And explore.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So how can someone get a hold of you? You do have a group and you do offer advice. I mean, you do have a really cool setup for to help women that want to get into that community. Because I guess I should reiterate that it is so important, in my opinion, to be a part of a community where you can relate to other people who are going through the same issues, and just how can folks connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am on Facebook. I'm on Facebook quite a bit. And as you mentioned, I have a couple of Facebook groups for single moms. So there's Single Moms in Mexico for those people who are actually specifically looking to move to Mexico. And, there's other single moms there. And I do the consultation calls with people who want that one-on-one support for moving abroad. And then there's the other group, which is actually, it's been up for a while. It's kind of going through a transitionary phase, but it goes back to what we were talking about earlier about building your own business as a single mom. It is single moms creating opportunities abroad, or creating opportunities and thriving abroad. Excellent group full of excellent women. We have a lot of, we talk about a lot of topics there, from everything from starting your own business to how to deal with life abroad. Some of the things we mentioned, dating abroad, how to build a community abroad, what to do when your kid is not really feeling it. So it's an excellent group that kind of covers all of the issues that we deal with as single moms when looking to move abroad. So I'm reachable through both of those groups, as well as my personal profile, which is Kimberly in Miles.
Great, great. Because I know there's people that are going to have lots of questions. This is promise, the last question. Do you think that depending on your children, or is there like a criteria in picking a place to go to? I mean, do you think, would you say that there are like maybe 3 points or 3 things that you absolutely have to have as checkpoints and when you are deciding on a place to go? Like, for example, Mexico as opposed to, say, Panama.
Right.
Are there some important elements that we need to take into consideration?
Absolutely. And I think, well, at the end of the day, and I think it really depends on what your goal is when moving there. If you're looking for something long term, whether you're looking for something long term versus short term, and what you're trying to get out of it. But what I tell other moms who are looking to move abroad is, number one, look for places depending on how you choose to educate your child. Some people, again, are unschooling, some people are homeschooling, some people are in traditional school. So depending on what you're looking for, look for that in the community. Are there good schools in that community if you're choosing to do traditional schools? If you are choosing to homeschool, is there a homeschool community there? Is it something that's even legal there? Like, is that something that's supported there? And if you're choosing to unschool, which is fine, what is there in the community that will help you teach your child the way that they choose to be taught? Like, are there other learning opportunities in that area? For example, Mexico City, just for example, has tons of history there. And so people who are choosing to unschool or homeschool, they have a lot of opportunity there. So that's number one, education. Number two, Jaden, please. Number two, just like, overall, like walkability. As single moms, many of us are choosing not to come with transportation, just because it's a hassle to get there for one reason, as one issue. So just thinking about the walkability of the city that you're in, are you able to quickly get to and from things? Do you need a car to get to the doctor's office, the hospital? Things as single moms, like if there were emergency, are you able to easily get somewhere without having to depend on someone else or something else? And number three, I'd say, again, just the language barriers, thinking about the language and culture differences there. Not saying that that should keep you from a place, but are you able to kind of mesh in with that environment? Are you able to kind of still communicate with others? Or, are you able to kind of deal with the way that things are done in that country or that place without feeling restricted? Some moms get to places and realize that, they can't communicate with other people, or they're not willing to learn the language, or it's hard to learn the language. So think about how that's going to affect you or the child, you and the child, for that matter, and how easily you're going to be able to kind of assimilate to that place or really kind of blend in and, learn to enjoy life there.
So much to think about,
There's a
and
lot, yes.
it's not an easy thing to do, but certainly doable. And I hope that those that are interested will reach out to you for a little bit of guidance, because it's certainly needed when you're making, this big decision. Thank you, Kimberly. I'm going to put a link to some of the things you mentioned in the bottom, so that folks can use you as a resource. And we're going to have to continue this conversation again about just some of the challenges and the good, maybe some of the bad things that moms are going to have to deal with, but positive, right? And in a positive, there's always, if you can do it, everybody can do it, right? If you just put your mind to it and have faith and reach out. So
Yeah.
I want to thank you so much for meeting up with us again, and we'll reach out to you again and go into a little bit more topics that might be of interest to single moms that are looking to make that move. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. I'll be looking forward to it.
Bye-bye.
Bye.